Apple iPhone X launch. How Steve Jobs' iPhone evolved into iPhone 7 Plus. Since Steve Jobs unveiled the first ever Apple iPhone back in 2007, the iconic device has changed a lot. With the company set to launch the much-hyped iPhone X tomorrow to mark the 10th anniversary of the smartphone line, here is a peek into how Apple iPhones have evolved over the course of time. Apple iPhone January 9, 2007 is the day it all began. Steve Jobs took the stage at Apple's Macworld with a tagline, "Apple reinvents the phone," and reinvented it. The first Apple iPhone was an amalgamation of a mobile phone, iPod with touch controls, and an internet communication device, becoming one of the initial multi-utility smartphones, the likes of which we are familiar with today. The camera on Apple iPhone was a 2-megapixel snapper which could only capture images and not videos. Apple iPhone 3G. The world was moving on to 3G networks and Apple moved along with it. A year after creating enough ripples with the launch of Apple iPhone, the Cupertino-based tech giant was back with iPhone 3G, an upgrade on the original iPhone, now with 3G support. The internals remained the same, more or less. The 4GB variant was ditched though, and Apple released only 8GB and 16GB variants for iPhone 3G. Also, this was the first Apple phone to be equipped with a GPS, however there was no Google Maps on the iPhone 3G, like its predecessor. Apple iPhone 3GS. The Apple iPhone 3GS marked the beginning of another trend in the smartphone world, naming upgraded devices by adding a suffix to the name of the predecessor. The iPhone 3G was a year old when Apple came up with Apple iPhone 3GS, with changes in the features and specifications seen in the former device. Notably, this was the first Apple phone to have a 32GB variant. Apple also amped up their camera game with iPhone 3GS, equipping it with a 3.15-megapixel snapper. The camera came loaded with geo-tagging and autofocus and touch focus, and can now also capture videos in 480p at 30 fps. Apple iPhone 4. The first change in iPhone design language was seen on the fourth smartphone out of Apple stables. The Apple iPhone 4 came to the store shelves with sharp edges and a blocky design in June 2010. Although the screen was still 3.5 inches long like the devices before, it now had a resolution of 640 by 960 pixels. The camera was a 5-megapixel unit with LED flash. Moreover, it could capture HD videos in 720p at 30 fps. Equipped with a VGA front camera, Apple iPhone 4 also saw the advent of selfie camera in iPhones. The camera could be used for video calling, but over Wi-Fi networks alone. Apple iPhone 4's Apple iPhone 4S was the first iPhone to have a 64GB variant as well as a multi-core CPU. The processor powering Apple iPhone 4S was a dual-core Cortex-A9 processor clocked at 1.0 GHz. The GPU on this smartphone was a PowerVer SGX543 MP2. The camera was also given a shot in the arm, making it an 8-megapixel unit with additional features like HDR photo and face detection. It could also capture full HD videos in 1080p and 30 fps. The secondary camera, although remained VGA, could now be used to make video calls on Wi-Fi and 3G networks, both. The Apple iPhone also brought with it a personal assistant, which could be called forth when needed. Siri, the voice-activated smart personal assistant developed by Apple, was the first of its kind. Changing the way smartphones are used, Siri could be used to take commands and dictations in a conversational language. Apple iPhone 5 with telecommunication entering a new era of 4G networks. Apple came up with iPhone 5, its first 4G phone, in September 2012. And there were changes on the very face of it. The screen for the first time touched the 4.0-inch mark, with a resolution of 640 by 1136 pixels. The selfie camera was also upgraded from VGA to 1.2 megapixel, which can shoot videos in 720p at 30 fps. Apple iPhone 5C. The company launched Apple iPhone 5C as an answer to those who thought iPhones were a drab affair and only the rich could afford. This was the first instance when Apple ventured into a color palette different from the black and white it had stuck to regarding iPhones. For the first time, iPhones was released in blue, yellow, green and pink, along with white. This also was the time when Android phones were dominating the market with their pocket-friendly price tags and abundant specifications, keeping the features and specifications same as the Apple iPhone 5. The 64GB variant of iPhone 5C was dropped to keep the prices low, releasing only 8GB, 16GB, and 32GB variants. Apple iPhone 5's Apple iPhone 5's was the first device from the company which came with a fingerprint sensor. The biometric sensor was mounted in the home button below the screen. The camera was also upgraded, now capable of shooting videos in 720p at 120 fps, along with the usual capabilities of its predecessor.